You're watching us here on Mad About Markets. We're discussing the massive opportunity the drone industry brings, but not without its challenges.
And we'll go with the segment that we call Yay and May, and Mangalam loves to go with the Yay, so you go with that.
The green drone, that's me. So let's talk about the biggest Yay. You know, the efficiencies that drones bring in. As per analysts, it has the potential to up our GDP by 4 to 5% just by virtue of the efficiencies that drones bring.
But we cannot talk about that without talking about the increased security risk that is associated with drones, and that is why you see the government coming up with policy after policy to address the problem.
That's very well taken, that point. But you know, as things improve, there will be lower cost of operations that drones will bring. Things going from A to B at practically zero cost.
What is not low is the cost of purchase. The initial cost of purchase, at least, is quite high for the industry.
But that's worth it if it gives you easy access to inaccessible terrain, right?
But you know what? We're still dependent heavily on imports for this sector. We're not as Atmanirbhar as we'd like to be just yet.
What about it being environment friendly? Drones need no fuel.
We're environment friendly, sure, but we're not very privacy friendly just yet. Like I said, worries about data privacy is one of the biggest challenges to tackle for the industry.
And that's where favorable regulations and good policy will perhaps, that's a challenge that it will allow us to tackle.
But you know, the side effect of that is the e-waste that this is going to generate. Again, some of the smaller issues that we still need to highlight though.
Yes, and on the flip side, we have a lot of interesting increased use cases due to tech advancement, not only logistics, but soon people are talking about passenger drones. Imagine not having to fight any traffic.
Well, what you do have to fight is constantly changing regulations. The industry's already had to deal with quite a bit, and it has to continue doing it as the industry evolves. So let's ask the players in the ecosystem about it. Agnishwar, what have been the challenges for growth in the industry in the last few years that you've seen?
I believe that it is going to be very critical for banks, financial institutions, NBFCs, as well as the government to ensure that both loans and subsidies for the drones, especially in the near future, are consistently provided and also ramped up, because I believe that that could be a major risk. But moving forward, I think that there is going to be an even bigger risk if we do not ride the wave and consistently keep innovating. If we are happy with our products as well as our services that we provide today, about 6 months to a year from now, I think that is definitely calling for caution as well as trouble. I see a lot of startups today, especially in the drone segment, very happy and also engaging in predatory pricing and lowering down costs, especially for drones as a services on a very short-term, short-sighted approach. I believe that the market is very, very big for a lot of our players to flourish. And I think that government agencies and B2G businesses are riskier compared to B2B and B2C service segments that we are in currently. I think B2G, because of its large working capital divide, where you will probably not get paid for maybe 6 months, 7 months post, those are riskier businesses for early stage and growth stage startups to get in.
To be honest, I think the challenges are that we have to continue the positive momentum we have on the policy side. We have to unlock policy in any areas that may still be, amenable to unlocking. We have just seen a recent unlocking that has happened with the opening up of exports for drones for civil users. We have to see that operationalized on ground. We have to see a lot of exports happening. So we currently believe that we are in a place where we have to see all the policy measures get operationalized on ground, and we see the benefits of those operationalized policy initiatives. And some areas like BVLOS and others where policy is yet to be formulated, we will see that there is progressive development in that direction from the government side. And once that is also unlocked, we will see greater utilization of these assets in our overall airspace.
Okay, and that brings us to our final bigger question on the wall right now, and that is, will the Indian drone industry take off or crash land? That question to both of you guys, Agnishwar and Ankit. Agnishwar, you go first.
I think the Honorable Prime Minister, as well as a think tank in the government, has realized that this particular sector could be as potential as the services industry was for India in the 80s and the 90s. And I think that is why there has been a lot of progressive government policies. I don't envision that to ever stopping in the near future. So I believe that in the next few years, provided that companies like Garuda getting a great, not just getting a great valuation, but also when we go public, adhering to all the great corporate governances, ensuring that we are staying profitable, not doing anything foolish, like entering or diversifying into something else apart from our core businesses, and also staying true to ourselves. Today founders and CEOs can get very carried away in their own hype. I prefer not to do that. And I think that is something which all founders need to do in the drone industry to ensure that we realize what our limits are, but we also realize what our potential are. And if we do that, I'm sure that Indian drone industry will scale and become a crown jewel of India by 2030.
See, I see very little, risk in terms of crash landing, first of all, because, if you look at what is happening globally, and like I mentioned to you, the global wars that have happened, the overall adoption of the technology in the rest of the world, if you see our industry report, you will realize that the global revenues on drones is already at about $20 billion. And in India, we are at only about $43 billion at FY22. And this is FY or CY22 number for the global market. So the headroom that we have is very, very large. Like I said, as long as the policy continues to support, as long as we get aggressive capability, both in the government and in the industry, to build technology and to certify technology in this space, I think this momentum is presently here to stay, at least for the short term, as much as I can see. And as the policy unlocks happen for other areas like BVLOS, we have already seen an unlock in exports. We have to see that operationalized. We have to see the previous policy also fully operationalized. So a lot of that will drive growth and momentum in the space. At the very best, I see that things can be, plus minus a few months, but I don't see a reason why the industry should get into a risk mode at this point in time, despite any other changes in the external environment.
Ankit, Agni, thank you so much for joining in with your perspective. But before we wrap, let's talk about the star of the show. And it's not the drone.
It's the maker of the drone, and that's who we have here. Lysander, welcome to CNBC-TV18. Thank you for providing us with this drone.
Thank you,
Pleasure
Shruti.
to have you.
Thanks.
And I understand that you're a hobbyist. I mean, when did this hobby start about, and how far has it reached now?
So I started this in 2020 when we had the pandemic.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of YouTube videos, and after watching like tons of videos, I started ordering parts, putting it together, and
How expensive is this profession? Hobby? What is it?
It is extremely expensive. So
So I'm assuming you don't make a lot of these yet.
I have actually made over a dozen.
Oh,
I've just
all
culled
right.
the fleet right now, and now I'm down to like about 5 or 6.
So you sell these and make money off it, is it?
No, so I make these drones. We use it to shoot commercials, ads in movies.
Speaking of shooting, aren't more and more movies relying on drones to get those fancy aerial shot footages we see, right?
Yes, and a lot of Hollywood movies like The Red Notice, Fast X, and a lot of regional cinema in India have begun to use drones. They've
Planning to
deployed.
work with any of them, Lysander?
It's very hectic, but we are working, like as in my peers are working with a lot of production houses to shoot with FPV drones.
All right,
Wonderful.
Lysander, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for bringing us this drone.
Yes,
we will
we'll
leave this
safely
to you
hand it back.
while
Yes.
we fly away from our viewers. Thank you so much for watching. See you same time next week.
Goodbye.
Experience the